All right, we'll give just a second for folks to drop in from the waiting room. Welcome, everybody. All right, looks like everybody's connected via audio. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jordan, and on behalf of the Dallas Public Library, I want to say thank you for joining us today to learn about holiday preparation and all kinds of great stuff. I just have a couple of things that we want to announce before we get started. The first being that this program is being recorded and streamed on YouTube. So if you're not comfortable with that, you can always drop out of the call and watch later on YouTube if you prefer to do that. The other thing to note is that you are going to be muted as an audience member. So if you have questions that we're going to do at the end of the program, you can enter them in the chat box and we'll aggregate them and make sure that we answer them at the appropriate time. So without anything else, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Helen from Dallas Environmental Quality and Sustainability to give us a little bit of intro.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I want to thank everybody for sharing their hour with us today. We're going to have a fantastic presentation on how to make your holiday greener and merrier. My name is Helen Dulac. I am with the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, also known as Dallas Environmental Quality and Sustainability. And I am super excited to be partnering with the Dallas Public Library on this series called Earth Day Every Day, which is every Thursday at noon. And today, I just want to do a brief introduction about my department because you probably never heard of us before. We were formed back in 2004, and then we were called the Office of Environmental Quality. Let's fast forward 4 years, and in 2008, we helped the city, this department helped the city achieve a special ISO 14001 certification, which means that the city looked at its operations across 14 different departments to see how we could still provide a high level of service with less of an impact on the environment. And this is a special international certification that all sorts of businesses can earn. And we were the first city in the United States to achieve this. And that's really amazing because we're talking about Dallas, Texas. We're not talking about a city in California. We're not talking about a city in Colorado. We're not talking about Austin. We are talking about Dallas. So Dallas actually does have a history of being green, and we're just try to get greener. So let's fast forward 10 years where a lot of changes happened to this department. There was a restructuring in the city of Dallas, and OEQ absorbed some other environmental operations in the city and doubled in size. To reflect that change, we also changed our name, and that's when we became Dallas Environmental Quality and Sustainability. Also that year with that merger, we created a combined outreach and engagement team that I am a proud member of. And then the following year in 2019, Mayor Johnson created the Environment and Sustainability Committee of City Council. They meet, I believe, the first Monday of each month at 9 o'clock, and those meetings are open to the public. And if you want to get a feeling for the green pulse of the city, those are great meetings to listen to. You also get to hear a lot of updates about what the city is doing along with the Climate Action Plan and many other things. Now, if you have heard of my department, it's probably because earlier this year on May 27th, the City Council did adopt the Comprehensive Environmental and Climate Action Plan. And that's also historic because we're talking about Dallas, Texas, concerned about climate change. And one thing is we are not a city located along the coast. A lot of cities that do have a climate plan are located along the coast where climate impacts can be more obvious. But we are also one of the first cities in Texas to formally adopt a climate plan. And so we're really, really proud of that. And you can see all 250 pages of the plan at dallasclimateaction.com. And as the city moves forward for the next 30 years, you'll see a lot of things that relate to the plan because it is our roadmap for the next 30 years, including this series of virtual presentations. So I mentioned that we went through a restructuring a couple years ago, and we doubled in size. And what you see in green are the groups that joined us in 2018. I want to talk about one of those just briefly, and that is stormwater. So stormwater is basically any time water leaves your property. It could be from the rain, it could be from your lawn sprinkler system, it could be from a hose that was left on. This water will travel across your yard, down your driveway, go into the street, travel all the way down that gutter to that big drain at the end of the street. That big drain is called a storm drain inlet, and it's there for one reason: it's to remove the water so the streets don't flood. These drains do such a great job. They remove that water quickly, that water is not cleaned or treated before it's connected to a creek or a stream. And then that eventually goes into one of our lakes or the Trinity River. So just please be mindful about what you do outside, because pollution outside your home or in your neighborhood doesn't always stay there. It can be collected by that water and carried down the storm drain into one of our lakes or eventually the Trinity River. So things like litter, bacteria that's in pet waste, any sort of motor fluids that might have dripped out of a car that's on your driveway or in the street. Those are how a lot of pollutants actually find their way into our waters, is through stormwater, through those storm drains. So make sure you don't put leaves and grass clippings down those drains, because they can also clog them and lead to flooding. And that's the last thing we want. So I mentioned the outreach and engagement team that I'm a member of. We want to empower Dallas to save the earth. And that's a pretty big order. How are we going to do that? Well, we do it by presentations like this, virtually and in person when we're allowed. If you're in Dallas, we can actually present for your group or organization at no cost. We also have a lot of materials for students, anywhere from K to college. And we also can do seminars, activities, and events. We also host some of our own events. The most recent one was the Waterwise Landscape Tour. Well, how about that? We just had ourselves a little surprise today. There we go. There you go. The Waterwise Landscape Tour, that was on November 7th. We have a virtual tour available at savedallaswater.com, where you can see homes that have no grass, zero turf homes. Think how much water that saves and how much time it saves from mowing. So you can virtually tour those homes. If you do invite us to speak, what do we talk about? Well, we can talk about environmental topics from A to Z, all the way from air quality to zero waste. And with that, I want to leave you with our website, greendallas.net. You can go there to request us to virtually speak at your meeting by filling out an event request form. If you ever have a question for me or any of my coworkers, simply send an email to greendallas@dallascityhall.com. And of course, please follow us on social media so you can learn about neat presentations like this and what we have planned in the future. We are Green Dallas TX on Facebook and at Green Dallas on Twitter and Instagram. And to thank you for spending your hour with us today, if you do send an email to greendallas@dallascityhall.com, include your name and your mailing address, you will get a free gift for joining us today. And with that, it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. Leah Marr is a climate reality leader and the vice chair-elect of the Climate Reality DFW chapter. She is passionate about bringing sustainability into our everyday life and our communities. As both a climate activist and educator, Leah thinks constructive and collective actions have to be implemented in every aspect of our lives and society, including all levels of government, our educational system, our workplaces, and family. She has been a firm believer that sustainability is practical, economical, and can be fun. Practical actions and collective efforts at the community and individual levels can spark climate conversations and unite communities to solve the waste and climate threats we are facing now. Aside from climate, she's a certified yoga and mindfulness teacher and faculty member at UT Arlington. So welcome, Leah.
Thank you so much, Helen, for that warm introduction. So hello, everybody. Again, my name is Leah. First of all, before I even start sharing my screen, I want to really thank the DEQS or Green Dallas and the Dallas Public Library for this opportunity to share some joy, but at the same time bring awareness into our daily action, especially throughout this holiday season. So with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Wonderful. Okay, you guys are all seeing my screen? Cool, awesome. Screen singular. Okay, cool. So today the topic is pretty lighthearted, I would say, because we're in the holiday season, but at the same time as a responsible member of this society, and all of us, I believe, we're here because we care about the environment, right? So today I want to talk briefly about how to make our holidays greener and bring more meanings into the holiday celebration. And within that, I'll also talk about the environmental impact of gifting, especially our gifting culture, and how to upgrade our celebration in preparation with sustainable and very practical practices. So there's my information. You can take a picture screen, or you can email Helen and things, or me, for any further information. Moving on. So I always, whenever I'm giving any talk or starting any conversation about the climate, I always start with this photo, right? Some of you probably recognize this. This photo was taken with the Apollo 17 mission in 1972. And this photo is called the Blue Marvel. And with that, I don't want to go into the scientific detail of that. I just want to simply read a quote from the astronaut from Apollo 14, Edgar Mitchell. And this is from a book called Love Letter to the Earth. And this is a quote from Edgar Mitchell. So he wrote in 1971, he said, "Suddenly from behind the rim of the moon, in long, slow motion moments of immense majesty, there emerges a sparkling blue and white jewel, a light, delicate, sky blue sphere laced with slowly swirling veils of white, rising gradually like a small pearl in a thick sea of black mystery. It takes more than a moment to fully realize this is Earth, this is our home." So with that, from today on, I would love for everybody, whenever we carry on any conversation about our environment and about our future, remember this is the best gift that we have all ever have. This is our home, and this is our only home. So moving on to the holidays, whenever we think about the holidays, right? A couple of things pop up in our mind: lights, trees. But I think I can very certainly say that most people think about gifting and think about family gathering and parties, right? And these are all opportunity to share our love and our passion and our joys with people that we love in our lives. And that's wonderful and great. Unfortunately, today, first half of our talk today, we're going to talk about the environmental impact of these things first, right? So whenever we think about the holiday, we're thinking about it's a season of sharing and season of love specifically, and it's all true and wonderful. But most of us probably know that the holiday has become a season of buying and season of wasting as well. So let's look at how, like, the great power that we have in the holiday buying and our wasting power. So according to the National Retail Federation, from a statistic in 2019, the total US sale in the holiday season, just within 6 weeks, topped $729 billion. And we're thinking that's a lot of money, right? We buy a lot of things. And then because we have so many loved ones, we pick gifts and host holiday parties, and it all takes money. And of course, that's a huge amount of money. And whenever we're thinking about buying gifts, we're always thinking, would they like it, right? Would they like the gift that we pick? Oh, it's okay, because they can always return it. So in fact, our consumerism and our society and the retail culture has made the returning so easy that most of us buy before we think. So here is a really astonishing statistic. It's estimated that about 77% of Americans actually don't like the gift that we receive, and 77% of them actually return the gift that we received in 2019. And think about that. That's like more than a third quarter of all the gifts that have been returned and getting a refund, right? And then one of the questions that we always thought, oh, when we return it, they can resell it, right? They can reshelve and do some processing, and then they can resell it. The truth is that only half may be resold, and only half of them can be reshelved, okay? So what happened to the half of them? They go straight into the landfills. That's where the waste come from. And that creates about 5 billion tons of holiday returns or trash in our landfills. And that's very unfortunate because we all started with the ideas that we want to share love. We want to get people what they want. But the truth is that more than 3/4 of us don't really like the gift that we get. So these are the numbers that we really have to think about and sink in whenever we think about what kind of gift or what kind of sharing that we want to do during the holiday season. And let's step back a little bit, thinking about tree waste, right? I've been seeing a lot of social media posts about tree waste, especially during this month. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to find a solid or consistent number for the US or for Texas specifically, but in the UK, every single year, it's estimated that 6 to 8 million of trees end up in the landfills every single day, plastic or live tree or organic tree. And so here's the good news. In Dallas, actually, we have really good recycling system. And this year, it's initiated by Turn Compost. If you live in North Texas, please look them up, right? They will schedule a pickup at your home if you schedule it, or on January 2nd, you can bring your own tree and drop it off at your location. So here's the web address that you can, grab and will be handy in the next month. Also for light, okay? The Dallas Zoo is actually doing light recycling for the entire city in North Texas as well. So at the Dallas Zoo main entrance until January 10th, you will see a big box that you can just drop your lights in there. It doesn't matter if it's working or not, they will recycle for us, right? We just have to take our lights there, all the lights. So take up a screenshot if you need to, or send me an email afterwards. I can send you those information for you to become handy. So tree waste is such a big problem as well. Moving on. So when we think about gift, right, we're thinking about how much it ends in the landfill and how much carbon footprint it has created through the delivering and shipping and packaging and all of that. But the other aspect we also have to pay attention is the labor force from our gift. And a lot of us probably are kind of aware of this, right? A lot of the goods that we're using in our daily life are produced with unfair and justice labor. So in developing country, roughly about 170 million children are forced to work in sweatshops. What are sweatshops? A sweatshop is defined by the US Department of Labor as a factory that violates a minimum of 2 current labor laws, state, international, federal laws. Right? And then more than 80% of them are women. So in other words, whenever we're thinking about sharing our gift and sharing all our loves, the things that we're buying actually were not made with love. So that's one of the things that, many of us are aware of, but we always, like, whenever we're buying or whenever we're thinking, it has to be like reinforced into our mind in terms of the impact behind the love that we're sharing. What about the carbon footprint and the carbon impact of the gifting culture and the returns? So we talk about in 2017, 5 million tons of returns and ended up in the landfills, and how much diesel was wasted in the process of delivering to our homes or sending it to our friends and families, and then they don't like it, they drove back to the store, right? And then the retail have to put them back to the truck and deciding whether if they can reshelve it or they can resell it. If not, they have to spend other fuels back into the landfills. So roughly about 1.6 billion gallons of diesel were wasted for just the holiday returns, in 2017. And how much carbon dioxide is that, right? It's about 15 million metric tons of carbon dioxide released for the things that we think they're a good gift, but really nobody wants. Nobody wants. And that's the sad truth behind the number. Specifically for USPS alone, about 15% of the delivery occurred between Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve. And that, I did the math for you from the EPA data, that roughly accounted for 8% of the total US greenhouse emission from transportation. from transportation. And this is only from one carrier, USPS. And we have so many carriers out there that accounts for 8% already. And then just to take you guys step back, right? For the US total greenhouse gas emission, transportation accounted for 28% of the total greenhouse emission from the US. So you have a rough number of how the carbon impact of the returns and delivery and the gifting culture in the holidays. So here I'm gonna use a study conducted in MIT. And this statistic or this chart on the right-hand side is the carbon footprint for buying one piece of toy. So basically the study, separate in-store shopping and online shopping. But online shopping, we all know that there's no rush shipping and there's rush shipping because sometimes we just need it within 2 days, right? So throughout their analyses, right, they show that for indoor shopping, most of the carbon footprint come from the customer driving to the store. That's the customer transportation. But don't forget, this is only accounting for buying one piece of toy for one trip. And for online shopping, the majority of the carbon footprint comes from packaging. And for rushed shipping, I would say it's pretty equal, right? It also comes from the delivery. So just from this chart, we can see that one of the easiest way to lower and reduce the carbon footprint for in-store shopping is to make a list. In one trip, get as many things as we all need as possible. So the carbon footprint of the transportation is divided into the items that we buy. And for online shopping, actually, if we use no rush shipping, the carbon footprint is slightly lower. So the lesson right here is that try to make a plan early. Don't use rush shipping. And as we mentioned, the majority of the online shopping, the carbon footprints come from packaging. So let's look at the packaging waste a little bit. So roughly about 50% to 53% of consumer packaging are recycled. And we're thinking, oh, 50%, that's not a bad number, right? Wait until we see the categories, okay? Most of them are paper and cardboard product. What about the plastic packaging, right? A lot of us know that everything that's shipped into our house, even if they're in a box, a paper box, there's a piece of plastic in there, right? So 88% of the plastic packaging, including gift wrappers or bags and stuff like that, have never been recycled in 2018 only, according to the EPA. And on average, a US household waste will increase about 25% between Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve. And most of them, guess what, are packaging, because we're buying a lot, we're buying party supplies, we're buying gifts, right? So all of these, the packaging add up, and that's 25% more within 6 weeks. And the other statistic, like the last statistics, is just jaw-dropping. So in 2017, Americans spent $12.7 billion on gift wrapping. And that's a lot of money. We know that, right? And we all know that. What happened to gift wrapping? We tear them down. So they have tapes on there, different materials on there. Can they be recycled properly? Usually not, if we don't pay attention to it. So most of these money are going straight into the landfill within 30 seconds of tearing down the gift wrappers. And let's talk about plastic recycling. Can plastic really be recycled? The answer is some of them can be really recycled. It depends on the number. Usually the higher the number in the triangular thing that we see, the easier it is to be recycled and the more profitable of the recycling process. But the truth is that the plastic recycling game, and I call it a game, is actually, I want to call it a gimmick from the fossil fuel industry, because the fossil fuel industry now know that, renewable is inevitable, and they're trying to find other ways to sell people fossil fuels. And this is through investigation by NPR, from Vox, not Fox, but Vox, okay, and from New York Times, right? They're in big trouble. So they try to produce as much more plastic as possible and trick us into the thought that these things can be recycled, but 88% of them have never been recycled. And here's the good news, right? We still want to share our joy and our love for the holiday season, and there's nothing wrong with that. It has everything good with that. But how do we do it without hurting or harming our environment? And that's the big question. So here today, I'm going to present 3 categories, and I rate them myself as slightly better. That's 1 thumbs up. Better, that's 2 thumbs up, you'll see later, and the best will be 3 thumbs up. Okay, so the first one, let's look at solution 1, or slightly better. All these things, we can still do them, because let's face it, sometimes there's no way we can make something, right? We just have to buy them, and that's okay. But there are ways to limit that and reduce the carbon footprints and the pollution that comes with the shopping. So if we want to do in-store shopping, we make a list. Get as much done in 1 trip as possible. And if we can start transitioning using EV or hybrid car, right? That will make so much difference if that's a collective effort. Second thing, for in-store shopping, if we can shop local and small business in our local area, that's even better. Because think about this, right? All these goods are shipped to our area already. The carbon footprint has been spent on that trip to the small shops and stores that we know already. So what we do is that we drive a smaller or shorter trip to make the shopping happening. And we also support small businesses so that our community can flourish. And if we really need to do online shopping, a lot of times we just have to do it, right? Like there's things that we cannot get in our neighborhood, or it has to come from other places. Plan early. Do not use rushed shipping, because rush shipping, think about it, 2 days or same day, very likely the products or the goods are flew to your city in order for that to be delivered to our door. So try to plan early. Second, and the second bullet point is actually really interesting. I just found it out this month in my research. So statistically has shown that if we want to order something online, we can order that from local stores. And think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? When local stores take in orders from the local areas, 1 truck can fill in hundreds of orders and run through a smaller area within our city. So the delivery carbon footprint is very reduced and limited. So if we can, and look up into the local store, we can ship and shop from local stores, and that will limit the carbon footprint a lot. And one more thing about online shopping, a lot of the things, they come with packaging, right? Reuse and upcycle before recycle, because for plastic, many of them are not being recycled at all. And then a lot of the containers, actually, we can upcycle and make use of that to make our own gift. And I will show you, I actually just made some right before this. I will show you that later. And lastly, please opt out of wrapping your gift, or use something that you already have at home, right? Use newspaper, use maps, use the brown paper bag that we have from grocery shopping, use them to wrap your gift. And guess what? That's a trend right now. People actually sell those looking or like rustic or retro looking plastic wraps out there. And we don't have to buy them. We have them in our home. Use them to wrap your gift. One more thing. There are many other ways to wrap your gift, right? As we mentioned, you can use all these brown paper bags or newspaper. And we can also kill 2 birds in 1 stone. You can wrap your gift with scarves, bandana. They're very helpful right now. And there's some companies making shopping bags that looks really cute and fashionable. So in fact, I have one right here. If you're looking at my screen, this is one of my favorite brands, but I'm not their affiliate, so I'm not going to show you that. But it looks like this, right? And then it's a really big piece of a shopping bag, you can just toss it in the washing machine. But you can put your gift inside, wrap it on top, and that's exactly what it would look like when you do that. So you're giving people something sustainable that they can use and putting your gifts inside, right? So opt out of the traditional gift wrapper as much as possible. So we're not creating more waste within which can be tossed out within 30 seconds of tearing down the gift. Okay, moving on. If we really have to buy, let's try to buy sustainably, right? And then a lot of times I think about the gifting cultures come from that I think people will like this. But how about we try to gift a gift with necessity, not whether people will like it or not. So I always think that necessity more than quantity, a necessity more than quantity. And let's pick goods made with sustainable materials, right? A lot of the companies are looking into how to make their goods and clothing items. And as a yoga teacher, I have tons of leggings, and I want to say half of them are made with recycled water bottle, and those are great. And they're not that expensive, to be honest with you. If we do some research, they are actually sometimes cheaper than some of the big names out there. Okay, so we just need to do a little bit more research looking for materials that are recycled or made by surplus or scrap fabrics, fabrics. Okay, and another thing is that all of us, our t-shirts are made with cotton, which is great, but cotton actually is a very water thirsty crop. And a lot of the companies out there are looking and turned to hemp. And hemp actually is really good for two reasons. The first one is not as hungry as cotton for water. It actually takes less than half of the water of growing cotton. Second, hemp absorbs carbon dioxide more than cotton. And it's really easy to take care of, and you can still throw them into the washing machine, most of them. Lastly, if we want to buy, think about materials that are locally and responsibly sourced, right? And made with fair trade and fair labors, because we want to give our love that are made with love, quantity over quality. And one more thing, if we want to buy local from small businesses, especially this year, a lot of people are turning towards, small businesses owned by people of color and minority. We want to show them a path to economic success moving forward, right? So that's a way to not just giving love, but also supporting our communities. And as consumer, we have the responsibility of digging deeper, right? Research our brands and our favorite products in terms of what kind of sustainability recognition they have, credentials they have, not just efforts, because a lot of them, they can write paragraphs on their website, right? But then without showing the credentials and without showing the certification, how do we really know? We don't have the numbers, we don't have the proofs. Everybody can write words. So ask for those things if we are not seeing them, right? Email them, call them, knowing that we will keep them accountable if they're not doing the right thing. And transparency really is a key. And here I'm just gonna list 4 certifications that I know of, but there are many out there that we can all look up. So the first one is called SA 8000, and this is created by Social Accountability International. Basically, they make sure any factory producing fabrics or clothing items or shopping bags and stuff like that, the laborers are paid fairly and equally, and they can sustain their lives. And they're also working in good condition. They're not crowded into sweatshops, right? The second one, and a lot of us love coffee and chocolate, and this is the one that you have to look for, right? Rainforest Alignment Certification. And this is specifically for, coffee and cacao and chocolate coming from the global south, right? We make sure these plants are grown sustainably and they're not using palm oil from the tropical forest or rainforest. Worldwide responsible accredited production. Also, this is focusing on labor laws and if a factory has violated that, and also on their environmental impact in their production lines. Lastly, I believe some of you have heard about it. It's called the LEED certification. It stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And this is mainly for buildings, institutions, or factories, right? We want to make sure the factories that produce our goods are made with the environment in mind, right? So look up these things and then look for the certification when we're buying goods. And I want to introduce one more website. I personally find this really helpful. It's called goodonyou.eco. And this website basically rates all the companies, mostly clothing items, but some, like accessories and things involving a lot of fabrics and sewing. They rate companies' business practice based on sustainability on the animal part, ecosystem, on the planet, and on people or labor force. And they will tell you whether, they recommend you avoid it or they highly recommend it. So check this out. And then rule of thumbs, I always think that if a brand or a company is very transparent about their practices, telling you what kind of certification they have, the chances are they're probably making meaningful efforts. But we as customers, we have the right to demand better practices from them, right? Contact them, call them out on social media. And that's a very powerful tool that we have in modern days. And some of the brands I'm just gonna briefly list it out here. And these are the brands I'm very familiar with. And I, did a lot of research on them. Many of you recognize Patagonia. They are tremendously responsible on the products they're producing. And in fact, right now, I believe 85% of their products are made by recycled material. And Package Free Shop, as the name suggests, all of the things you order from them, there's zero plastic in there. There's zero plastic in there. And they will actually tell you on the product page that after you use this thing, how can you upcycle it? How can you recycle it? How can you actually make use of it? So I think this is really helpful. And the other two brands are clothing brands as well, but they're all using recycled material only. And if you look them up, the price is not that high, seriously. Okay, moving on. Second category, right? We want to look for alternative to share our love. Better alternative, 2 thumbs up, right? Think about gift cards, right? When we do gift cards, we're taking the guesswork out of it. And we're giving people the agency, and people who love, we love the agency to actually pick their own gift, right? And even better, I would argue e-gift card is better than a piece of plastics, because no one carries your wallet nowadays, right? You just carry your driver's license and your phone and you can pay wherever you go. So having that e-gift card is so convenient and very environmental friendly, because a piece of plastic card, it cannot be recycled. It cannot be recycled. And I want to even argue, get the gift card from local and small businesses. And if you're like, I don't really know what they like, get it for a grocery store. Everybody has to do groceries, right? And think of necessity, not I think they, she, or he will like it, because the truth is that 77% of us don't really like the gift that we get. And I want to tell you, actually, many of you are probably doing this already. Make your own gift. That we're not just spending money, we're not just buying it, we're actually putting effort and heart into it, right? So I'm gonna actually just show you what I just made before this presentation. I made candles, and the jars, I never buy the jars. I get the jars from my salsa, okay, my bean paste, right? From peanut butter jar, from old candles. And these can be so easily cleaned and stored in your shelf, right? And all you need is soy wax, chopsticks, and then the string inside. And you can buy them in bulk. It comes still with some packaging, but not a lot, right? And then 5 pounds of soy wax, you can make more than 20 candles out of it, different size. And I'm gonna just show you this little thing right here. This is from a creme brulee container. And as long as they come with a metal lid, you can use it for candle, or you can just go without the lid, right? It takes literally 10 minutes to make 20 of them. It's so easy. It's so easy. And you can customize them with the scents that you like. You can get them from grocery store as well with your essential oil. So candles, I think, and they're expensive in the stores, right? But they're so affordable and customizable when we make them ourselves. And other things, just throwing ideas, and many of you are probably experts in this as well because you care about the environment. We can make cards, we can make oil bombs. If you have hand mixers at home, buy coconut oil from your grocery store. You can make them really meaningful. And cookies. Who doesn't like food, right? Who doesn't like food? And for the holidays, everybody is eating desserts, right? So if we spend the effort of making, things that people love to eat, and chances are we know what people like to eat more than we know what they like to use because we eat with them, right? So that's another solution or another alternative, even better. Moving on, actually the best alternative, I would argue, is actually not giving things, but giving experience and giving presence, spending time together. And when we think about experience that enhance people's life quality, right? Membership to online courses, audiobooks, gym studios, and museums or zoo, right? Or even just think about spending time together, because a lot of times whenever people think about my happiest moment in our lives, it's not things, right? It's the time that we spend with family and friends. So let's do some outdoor adventures together, spend time together, not during COVID though, but, and maybe we can do community service together with a mask on. We can still do that now, right? So spending time together, and if we really have some disposable income for the holidays, how about let's share the love and extend the love and joy out to the organization that are doing something that we really agree on and support. So I would argue these are the best practices for holiday spirit, giving experience and time, not things. I do have time, so I can go briefly go through this, okay? And whenever we think about the holiday, another aspect is the parties, right? Or the gatherings, and it's all good. But this year, this is a little bit less applicable. But if you're still gathered together, try outside. But in the future, right, when we're hosting party at home, we want to try to use as much reusable as possible. And one of the things I always think about, I personally find it kind of interesting that people like to use single-use or disposable things, whereas we spend thousands of dollars on our dishwashers and laundry machines, right? So how about let's use reusable? And after your guests leave your house, you can just toss them into the dishwasher. Let your dishwasher do the work. Let your laundry do the work for your linens, for your reusable, for the plates, for the cups, and all of that. Because when we let the trash do the work, it's actually our land and the earth taking the responsibility for us instead of the things we actually spend money on. So let the dishwasher and our appliances do the work, not the earth, not the landfills, right? And then the third bullet point, sometimes we're doing takeouts, right? We're buying party supplies, we're buying party food from outside. The good news is that many restaurants and many vendors now can allow you to bring your own container to buy takeout. And I would suggest you call them ahead of time and tell them you think this is a really important issue. If they're not doing it, urge them to start looking into ways to serve the community this way. Because for them, they're not just making profit, they should serve us as well. And there are many solutions to single-use food storage and container. I'm just gonna give you a couple that I know, and many companies are doing these, right? Some of you probably have seen these bags around in the grocery stores, and these are my favorite. And this brand specifically is called the Stasher bag, but a lot of them are doing it. They're not just for food storages, they're also for you to cook in them. And that's why I love about what I love about it so much, right? So for the salmon specifically, you can put them in there, season it and toss it in the oven. So all the flavor will just absorb in there, right? And you can put them into the dishwasher or hand wash. and then you can use it. So I literally have 7 of them in my shelf, and I use them every single day. They can be put into the freezer, and a lot of other companies are doing that as well. And some of you probably have seen this as well, right? Instead of using plastic wraps, we can use the silicone lids that actually fits the shape of the balls, the shape of the balls, and upcycle, upcycle, upcycle. As I mentioned, all of these things are all from my grocery shopping. I never spend any penny on these things. So use the things that you get from outside and make it your own gift or make use of them. And lastly, if we really have to use single use, right? Try to stay away from plastic, because most of the single use plastic cannot be recycled, sadly. And specifically, stay away from the foam products, styrofoam. They are terrible for the environment. None of them can be recycled, and then they're hard to compress, right? So they never got biodegraded in our landfills. Stay away from those things. And if we're thinking about the health impact of the plastic, we also have to think about whenever we use any plastic containers, we're eating microplastic inside, and that we don't want, especially for the holiday season and for our loved ones. For composable options, and many of the companies are also doing it. One of the company earliest started doing it is called the Eco Products. And the good news is that a lot of the Dallas restaurant and companies are using these. So these are wonderful, and usually they're not being bleached. So they have that brown paper looking on the outside without any plastic film in the inside, and that's how it can really be properly decomposed, right? And then lastly, before we think about recycle, please clean it, because whenever we think about recycling, we have to think about recycled goods as a commodity, not something the government just should do for us, right? It's a commodity. If it's not profitable, no one will recycle it. How do we make it easier to become for profits? Clean it thoroughly before we toss it into the recycle bins. Yes. So one of the things before we wrap up, what about, I believe all of you care about the environment, and many of you are doing a lot of the things that we're talking about today, right? So I'm doing all of these. What now? What should I do? Should I just stop here? Of course not. Of course not, right? I would encourage you to spread the words, share the practices, and encouraging you to contact the businesses and the brands that you love, because we as the consumer have the responsibility, also have the right to demand better practices, and tell them what you want them to do, and tell them the reason, schedule calls, and tell your family and friends, and spread the words in your community, because individual efforts only help when we spark conversations and turn them into collective efforts in the movement, right? If we think about, we want to fight a forest fire and we only have a garden hose, is that gonna help? No. And that's what individual effort look like. But when we have a lot of individuals and then can spark conversation, that's how we can really make a true difference in the collective effort, in the movement, So these things are really tiny little tweaks that we can do, but when we spread the words, we can make things happen and make things better. So I'm going to stop right here. Thank you all so much. I'm seeing the chat box lighting up, so we can take questions. You can mute yourself or unmute yourself, or Helen, I don't know how you want to do this. I can just briefly go through the chat.
Right. So I want to thank you for this. This was so informative. And, I have to admit that it's nice to be able to have someone do a lot of the research for you so that you can make an informed decision. So I want to thank you for the effort you took in preparing this presentation and doing all of that research for us. So we did have a question about wrapping paper and in the recyclability of wrapping paper. So one thing that I can tell you for the city of Dallas, and if you live in another city, it might be different, is wrapping paper that is like foil or has any sort of metallic on it or glitter is not recyclable. One way to really test to see if your paper is recyclable is to do what we call the crinkle test, and to actually crinkle it up into a ball. And if it stays in a ball, that is like pure paper. If the ball opens up, then it's not recyclable because there's other fibers in it. All right, so that's one thing, that's one way you can to test. And that's going to be really important coming up with the holiday season. And just like Leah mentioned, that Christmas lights, please do not put your Christmas lights in your blue bin because they get tangled in all of the equipment that's used to sort out your recyclables. We actually have a name for it. We call it tanglers. So things like coat hangers, extension cords, lights, and long strand things. We call those tanglers because they tangle up in the machinery. Now, there was a question specifically about tape. So like tape on your wrapping paper. So if your wrapping paper is recyclable, you do the crinkle test on it. If there's a whole bunch of tape on it, yes, please take some of it off. If it's just like maybe a couple pieces, I wouldn't worry about it. But I think Leah showed us a lot of different alternatives for wrapping paper, such as using the scarves and the different kinds of fabric and different kinds of creative things. I can tell you personally, one year for Christmas, I used insulated shopping bags, and I put everybody's gift in insulated shopping bags. Now, gift tags are really important because everybody had the identical bag. So I had to, I individualized, so I knew which bag went to which person. But I can tell you, I was surprised at how popular that was, because a lot of people might have shopping bags, but they don't necessarily have an insulated one.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the kids packed up all their toys into the bag, zipped it up, and then they were ready to go. So it was actually really handy. And those are actually quite popular. So that's another option. She showed you like using that collapsible bag, which I have plenty of those and I love those. Those are some of my favorite reusable bags because you can clip them to your purse or your backpack or something like that. So you don't go into the store without them, because a lot of people have the bag sitting in the car and they leave it there and forget to take it into the store. So that's another little tip there that can help. And I loved how you talked about like baked goods or food. Another wonderful thing about gifting food is that you can customize it. So like if somebody has an allergy or they eat gluten-free or something like that, you can give them exactly what it is they can eat, going towards, I can't believe 75% of us return gifts. That is astonishing. That is astonishing. We do have a question about, are there certain types of fabrics or items that are best for wrapping gifts? Like, so is there particular types of cloths that make better gift coverings than others?
I think anything that you can actually wrap and put a tie on the top, that would work, right? But I would assume, you wanna try to avoid any like stiff fabric, because the stiff fabrics are kind of hard to wrap together, and find something that is like kind of drapey. But I would say, if you can wrap it, there's a way to gift it, right? Because you're giving them an extra gift, and I don't think anyone will complain about that. That is useful and that is eco-friendly.
Exactly. And we actually do have a session on Friday, this coming Friday. If you go to DallasClimateAction.com, you will see that there is a session called CLASS, C-L-A-S-S, and it's about holiday waste. And one of the things that we're actually going to demonstrate is fukushiki, which is the Japanese art of fabric wrapping gifts. Mm-hmm. And so we're actually going to do 4 demonstrations on how to do that using different kinds of materials. And also that session has many other things about reducing holiday waste. And I have a link there where you can register directly, but you can also go to DallasClimateAction.com and see information on that. It is virtual. It's 11 o'clock on Friday, and it's free and open to everyone. We also had a comment. I think it's the best idea is to ask people that you're giving gifts to 5 things that they would like, so that you can make sure you give them an appropriate gift. And that's actually a really good idea too. And so we just launched a poll. If you guys don't mind taking this, it helps us with our future programming, and so that we can offer you what you would like to hear about. And also, Leah, I loved how you mentioned the experiences. And you mentioned like volunteering or community service. That is a fantastic thing to do as a unit, within your bubble. And like you mentioned, you can wear a mask, and a lot of places are large enough where you can socially distance. And this is a time, like for example, at a food bank or a food pantry or something like that, it's a very heartwarming experience. I personally have volunteered at several food pantries and food distribution events, and I can tell you that's a gift in itself. To see how to do something to help somebody and see the joy that it brings them, even if they're complete strangers. So that's something I cherish very much. And even like what I'm going to do this year is I'm asking my family to donate to different charities and nonprofits and NGOs instead of buying a gift for me. Because like you mentioned, I'm unfortunately one of those 75% that has returned gifts or received something that I wasn't that excited about. And so case in point, when I got married, I was a little bit older than some people when they got married. So I already had a house, and my husband had a house. So we had basically two households coming together. So we had a lot of stuff. So I actually did not do a wedding registry because we didn't really need a lot of things. And it was great until one of my husband's aunts called and basically was like, what is this? Why are you not having a registry? And she basically, it was like an intervention that they did. It was like this wedding registry intervention that we had to sit through while she told us how we needed to go out to the department store tomorrow and do a registry and all this sort of stuff. So it might take a little bit of time to get your family to understand that sometimes an object isn't the best gift, you know? And so I've been married 15 years. And now, actually last year, my mother-in-law gave me a gift in a reusable basket for the first time. So sometimes it just takes, I know, exactly, small wins, right? And so sometimes it just takes some patience and some perseverance and leading by example.
Correct.
I bring my own containers to holiday celebrations I have with my family to take leftovers in, you know, so that we don't have to use like plastic bags or whatever to take the leftovers. I encourage people who come to my house for holiday dinners or any sort of celebration to bring their own containers also to take home food. So I really agree with you that you have to kind of lead by example. And what you shared with us today allows us to do that. So I'm really excited about that. And then, you know, you talked about the gift cards, and e-cards are much easier to come by than—
You can actually load it to your wallet. You don't even need to pull it up in your email. And this is everything you need. You don't need to carry anything with you.
I know, you're exactly right on that. And there's and more small businesses are adopting the e-cards. And so you can help with the support local and small businesses. And also, you know, you talk about how we all need to eat, and we usually love food. So a lot of restaurants right now are struggling because, you know, of the pandemic. And this is a great way to buying gift cards to support local, small, maybe family-owned restaurants. And basically you're treating your friends, your family, your loved ones to a dinner, you know, because they could get takeout and enjoy a nice dinner at home. And it supports these businesses which are really, really struggling right now. And we've heard that how restaurants have been going out of business, and it has a ripple effect, you know, because of the staff and you know, the food supply chain and all sorts of things like that. So shopping, you know, getting those gift cards from local businesses, local restaurants, and also farmers markets. A lot of farmers markets are still open. Actually, I think they all are. And that's a great way to also have less packaging, because, you know, you could bring your own bag. A lot of those times, the artisans or the farmers or something like that, you know, they can just hand you the item, and then you can put it in your own bag, and then you have no waste at all. So there is lots of different ways. You just have to kind of switch your thinking just a little bit, you know, and then you can find all these things. And
I
so,
just want to add on for farmers market. A lot of the times what I see from the farmers market packaging is that they're using more sustainable material for their packaging, right? Because, you know, they don't have to think about the transportation. The glass will shatter. So in the farmers market, they use so much less plastic than when we walk into the grocery store, because they actually have that advantage that everything is shipped within local area, right? They don't have to worry about not using glass, because they can use glass and they look great. They look great when they put it out there in the farmers market. So that's one of the things, I just, as Helen, you said, we have to like tweak our mind a little bit and then spend a little bit time trying to convince our family and friends, lead by example, so that the trend can go on for a collective effort.
Absolutely. And this is a great time, like you said, to this holiday season, we can really give, because we can volunteer, we can support local businesses, restaurants, farmers markets, artisans, crafters, bakers and different things. So it's a great time to do that, just to tweak it just a little bit and having the dollars and the effort you put out help so many more people by just doing some of these things and adopting some of these behaviors. And and you also, we're just about out of time, so I believe we made it to everybody's questions, and you got lots of kudos, Leah, for your presentation. Lots of people really enjoyed the information you shared. This presentation will be on the Dallas Public Library's YouTube page, so you can share it, reference it again. If you register through the library market to attend, you will get an email in a few days that has another survey plus a link where you can download this presentation and have it as a reference so that you can get those websites and different things like that. And next week, 1 week from today, we actually have another program very similar called the Procrastinator's Green Gift Guide. And you'll get to see me and some of my awesome coworkers show you how to make some easy holiday gifts. These will also be great to do with children. They can help and participate on how to do these. And these are going to be materials that you have at home or are easily found and turn into great gifts. And we're featuring a gift for pets, and we're featuring a gift for gardeners, and a general gift. So it's going to be pretty awesome. You can go to the library market and register for that, and there's a link in the chat. So on behalf of Leah and the Dallas Public Library and Dallas Environmental Quality and Sustainability, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with us, and we hope to see you again soon. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, yeah.